Newcastle United have finally had a breakthrough in the transfer market. Anthony Elanga is on his way for a medical to complete that move to St James's Park. We've also got news of a bid from Leeds for Sean Longstaff, and we'll also look at links with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. In this episode of NUFC Transfer Daily, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thanks so much to everybody who's continued to like, share and subscribe. If you haven't done that already on this video, please do. Today we have plenty to talk about, actual news to talk about. About 8 o'clock last night I was really racking my brain about what we were going to discuss, and then about 9 o'clock all hell broke loose and Anthony Elanga is on his way to Newcastle. The news broke through various different journalists last night, but the one that's really interesting is David Ornstein saying around £52 million for the player, with bonuses that are believed to be difficult to reach, which is really interesting because that's, we've talked about the valuation of the player and about the premium that you pay for Premier League players these days. That seems to be quite a good deal from Newcastle's perspective. So I think this deal will reflect well on Newcastle. We've spoken about how he fits in and the reality of his profile being, with his contract, his age, his output, his experience, and the style of player that he is, the injury record that we talked about yesterday. Though those things mean that you have to pay around £50 million. Sky Sports compared him to Newcastle's other wingers, Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes and Jacob Murphy. He played every game last season, as we said yesterday, which none of the other players did. He scored 6 goals, which was the same as Anthony Gordon, 2 fewer than Jacob Murphy and 3 fewer than Harvey Barnes. 11 assists, 1 fewer than Jacob Murphy. But the interesting thing about that is Jacob Murphy is one of only 2 players with Mo Salah who had more assists than Elanga last season. 50 chances created, 1 fewer than Anthony Gordon, 8 more than Murphy and quite a few more than Harvey Barnes is 26 as well. And maybe this is the sort of really key thing. 14 fast breaks, 7 for Anthony Gordon, 6 for Jacob Murphy and 8 for Harvey Barnes. That might be the key thing, and I know people have questioned whether he's right for Newcastle because of this progression through counter-attacking play into possession-based play, but think about counter-pressing. Newcastle can win the ball fairly high, feed Anthony Elanga, and he can break at speed. That's the sort of thing that he brings, and that stat is a really great example of that, so much further ahead of all the other players. That's the sort of trademark thing of Eddie Howe's Newcastle, is the sort of build-up play and playing through teams, starting in midfield, getting it out wide, getting the crosses in and the striker finishing. That's kind of the way it's always been for Eddie Howe, and I really think that Anthony Elanga really thrives with that. He's also, as we said, 2-footed, so it really makes a difference in that sense as well. Apparently Anthony Elanga didn't push for the move, which is reflective, I think, of why this deal took so long. Think about Nottingham Forest not needing to sell in a strong position in Europe with a contract of 3 years, and he's not pushing for that move. What's the motivation to make it easier for Newcastle? That's why I think that this move was really difficult to do. I've said quite a few times on these videos in recent weeks that I'm pretty sure Anthony Elanga wants the move. He's been publicly seen with Will Asula, who's been playing up to his role in quite a jokey way over social media. So we know that he's been keen, but he hasn't crucially been asking to leave. And I think that's often we've seen with clubs. We talked about it with Isak and Liverpool. We talked about it with Bruno and Man City last season. Clubs often need players to make that move when a club is in no pressure to sell. And the fact that Elanga didn't do that really, I think, is why this deal took so long. Or at least a huge factor in that. So I've had my reservations, but this is a good signing in terms of progressing what Newcastle are already doing. I still think they need a player to unlock a door, a number 10. I've said that quite a lot. I don't think Anthony Elanga necessarily does that, but he's definitely an upgrade on Jacob Murphy. I think Murphy, as great as he was last season, and his numbers were better than Elanga's, obviously we've said that, but the fact that he played to such a level was quite a surprise. I don't think he is expected to repeat those numbers. I thought really well under Eddie Howe, but the age that he is and the fact that he's quite one-dimensional, he gets the ball into Isak early or he gets a shot off early, but if he has to think about what he does and has to make a choice, that's where he sort of comes unstuck. I don't think Elanga's quite the same. I think I've seen quite a lot lot of Anthony Elanga, where he's had moments to think about what he does next. He's often made the right choice. I think that's really, really crucial to why Newcastle have gone for him. He's definitely still a little bit raw. He's definitely still has improvements to make, but I think Eddie Howe said that that's the type of player that he wanted, and that's the type of player Newcastle have to look at buying. And the fact that he's 23 and he's already hitting similar numbers to the players that he's now going to be competing with in the team suggests that he can go a lot further. Think about this in the context of the Anthony Gordon signing. At the time, we thought Newcastle had more ability to spend. Every penny really counts now because of PSR, so that's why there's much more scrutiny on it. But his numbers are better than Gordon's were at the time, and yes, there were some questions at the time about Gordon's fee, but he's proven himself to be that player and more since he's joined Newcastle. Eddie Howe's worked with him, moulded him, and I'm pretty sure he can do the same with Anthony Elanga. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. I think it's a really positive thing that Newcastle have finally made a transfer breakthrough, and it sets the tone now. People are getting concerned about big players coming in before pre-season or before the game, having enough time to settle in. He'll be at Aston Villa on the 16th of August, ready to go, and that's a real positive. This is the main thing that they've wanted for 3 years, a new right midfielder. They've got that, and it's a really, really good one as well. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. But that wasn't where the news ended last night, because Sean Longstaff was subject of a third bid, apparently, from Leeds. You know that link has been there heavily for quite a while. He's got a year left in his contract. The bid is around 10 million plus 2 million in add-ons, and according to David Ornstein, it's kind of getting to the end game where if they don't accept it, then they'll move on. Looks like it will happen. But there is a little bit of a complication with that, because Newcastle do have the Champions League squad to think about, and he is one of those few players that fits the bill as one of those 4 players that they need to be club trained in the 25-man squad, or they'll face a penalty of having fewer players to choose from in the Champions League. So that's a little bit of a question that they maybe have to ask themselves. Is it worth the money, the £10 million, the pure profit as well, or is it better to keep him as part of the squad for the Champions League? I think it looks likely that he's going to go, so that feels, and I think he probably wants to play. I think it's quite clear that he's not going to get those opportunities at Newcastle. We've spoken about him being below Louis Miley as well in the pecking order at the moment, so it feels like now is the time for him to go. He wants Newcastle to get a fee by the sounds of it as well, and I think it would be a good move for him. Leeds will be getting a Premier League proven midfielder who's very, very good at certain things and would thrive, I think, in a team that has less expectation on it. He's definitely of the level for the Premier League. He's a good age at 27. He's a hard worker. He's a very, very good guy as well. I've had the pleasure of speaking to him quite a few times over the last couple of years. Lovely guy, and a very, very good player as well. It suits everybody in most ways. Newcastle get a good PSR sale. Newcastle make some money on a player that will leave for free next year. He gets to go and play football, and Leeds get a really good player as well. I think it's quite sad what's happened with him in terms of the way that Newcastle fans have reacted to him, because his performance has dipped at a point where Sandro Tonali wasn't in the team last season, and there was quite a lot of vitriol towards him at times. I think that's unfair, because he's only ever tried his best. He's only ever done, I think, really well for Newcastle, and there was a point where Newcastle didn't win without him in the team, and I think that isn't a coincidence. But there comes a point where the team's outgrown him, and that's come now, and I think, yeah, this is a deal that will likely happen. It'd be sad to see him go on a personal level, and it would be a little bit of a concern in terms of the Champions League squad as well. And finally, just quickly, we're going to touch on Callum Wilson and a report about Dominic Calvert-Lewin again this morning. I wrote a piece for Forbes on Callum Wilson last night, sort of paying tribute to him and saying that I think he is one of the most important people in the last sort of 5-10 years at Newcastle. His goals in a really difficult era under Mike Ashley with Steve Bruce kept the club in the Premier League, allowed the club to get taken over, and then he played a key role as well, scoring 18 goals in the first full season under Eddie Howe, and playing in the Champions League as well. So he's done really well. But again, similar to Sean Longstaff, the club just outgrew him. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's been linked on a free transfer this morning, replace him very well. In some ways he does, because he's physical, he's 5 years younger, he's played a lot of games. There's a lot of talk that he's injury prone. He played 26 games last season, 32 the season before. So he could come in and be a good foil for Isak in the way that Callum Wilson was. But his goal-scoring record, 3 goals last season, 7 the season before. He's only scored double figures twice in the Premier League and not since 2021 when he scored 16 in 33. That to me means that it's quite an underwhelming one. But there are definitely some reasons why this could work, because he is physical, he does bring in different things, but we've seen that Newcastle want a versatile forward. Maybe to answer that number 10 question that I put forward as well earlier, and maybe I'll do a video on this, analysing what Newcastle need to look for in their striker search and maybe looking at various different options. But in terms of a quick fix and an answer right now who could come in and slot in and do a decent job, I don't think Calvert-Lewin is by any means the worst option out there, but I also understand the reservations that some people have. Thanks so much for joining me on today's episode of NUFC Transfer Daily. What a day it is too. Anthony Elanga's on his way, Sean Longstaff could be leaving, could Dominic Calvert-Lewin be joining as well? Let me know in the comment section what you think of Elanga's signing, and I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Cheers.